Okay. Hairspring set off at once, creeping along with his belly fur brushing the ground, taking advantage of every scrap of cover. Crowfeather could barely make out his brown and white pelt among the 2 stalks of worry grass. The apprentices watched, their claws flexing in anticipation. But before Hairspring was in position, a stronger puff of wind passed over the ground. The hare's head lifted from its cover, its nose twitching. Then it sprang, fleeing back up the hill, forcing itself up along with powerful strokes of its hind legs. Hairspring rose to his paws, his tail lashing in frustration. "Fox dog," he exclaimed. Crowfeather hurled himself after the hare, quickly noticing that a black shape was streaking alongside him. Night Cloud. I'll try to overtake it," she gasped. "Drive it back to you." She put on an extra burst of speed, flashing past the hare and turning to confront it with teeth bared and claws extended. The hare almost tripped over its paws as it doubled back, skidding downhill. Crowfeather bunched his hind legs, launching into a leap, then landed on top of it and sank his fangs into its throat. Once the hare was dead, Crowfeather stood back, panting, and waited for Nightcloud to rejoin him. He wanted to share the triumph of a successful kill, just as he would with any of his clanmates, but Nightcloud padded past him toward the others as if she were hardly aware that he existed. Who made dirt on her first kill? Crowfeather gave a shrug, picked up the hare, and followed her. If that was how she wanted things to be between them, then he was not going to give her the satisfaction of showing her that he cared. "Wow, it's huge!" Slightpaw exclaimed as Crowfeather dropped his prey at Hairspring's paws. Crowfeather gave the deputy a nod. "Like you said, teamwork," he meowed dryly. Hairspring looked slightly discomfited. "Let's go further down," he suggested. "We might find some smaller prey near the stream, and the apprentices can have a try." "That will take us past the place once they're asked us to check out, too," Nightcloud added. When they had buried the prey, Hairspring took the lead again, making for the stretch of woodland on the WindClan side of the border stream. Before they reached the trees, the deputy drew to a halt at the edge of the gorse thicket that straggled over the hillside. At the foot of the slope, a stretch of flat ground led to a steep bank riddled with holes. "One star thinks there's something odd going on here," he meowed. "Let's see if we can find out what it is." Hoopaw's tail shot straight into the air. "Are we going to explore the tunnels?" he asked. "Cool." "You aren't going to explore anywhere," Nightcloud informed him sternly, flicking his shoulder with her tail. "All the apprentices keep back." "We never get to do anything," Nightcloud grumbled, his tail drooping. "If you're not careful, you'll go do the elders' ticks," his mentor warned him. "Now, let's see what we can scent." Crowfeather opened his jaws to taste the air, and at once an unfamiliar scent trickled past them. "Can you smell that?" he asked. "Weird," Hairspring murmured. "I feel like I should recognize it, but I'm not sure." "It might be coming from the tunnels," Nightcloud pointed out. Crowfeather turned a slow circle, looking about them. The tunnels that gapped in the bank stretched for countless fox lengths underneath the territory, joining WindClan to ThunderClan. The nearest hole in the side of the steep bank gapped open and only a few tail lengths away. It was quite possible that some kind of animal had made its den inside there. "There's no one else it can be coming from," he responded to Nightcloud. "Maybe we ought to take a look." Even though Crowfeather had made the suggestion, his pelt prickled with appreciation at the thought of padding down into the darkness under the earth. So few cats used the tunnels now that he had no idea what condition they were in these days. "Featherpaw, you are told to stay back," he added, as his apprentice craned her neck to peer into the gaping hole. Hairspring paused thoughtfully, jaws open, then shook his head. "The scent is pretty stale," he meowed. "Whatever it left, it might be long gone. Or maybe they're just camped out very deep inside the tunnel." Crowfeather didn't speak his thought aloud, though. The clandestine deputy had obviously decided not to investigate, and Crowfeather admitted to himself that he was relieved to stay out in the open air. "So are we hunting or not?" Nightcloud asked irritably. "Sure we are," Hairspring responded. "Why don't we see what we could find around here? If the scent is stale, the prey might be coming back." "Good luck with that," Nightcloud muttered. "It's been scarce on this side of the territory since just after the great battle." Hairspring shrugged. "We can still give it a try, and maybe we'll find out something useful." The three warriors split up, each taking their own apprentice. Crowfeather caught no prey scent on the ground, and only faint traces in the air, but eventually he spotted a sparrow perched on a jutting spike of rock, perfect for an apprentice's practice. Just as he was beginning to advise Featherpaw on how to pounce on it, a loud yowl split the air from further along on the bank. "Great Starkland!" he exclaimed. "What's that?" He whipped around and raced along the bank toward Hoopah, who was standing rigid, his gaze fixed on another of the dark tunnel entrances. His fur was so bushed up, he looked twice his size. Crowfeather's pelt prickled with appreciation as he wondered what could have spooked the apprentices like that. Hoopah wasn't easily frightened. He was usually a bold and adventurous young cat. "Hang on, I'm coming," Crowfeather called out as he charged up, half expecting to see a fox or a badger emerging from the tunnel, except that wasn't fox or badger scent. As Crowfeather halted beside Hoopah, he thought he spotted something white and shining on the mouth of the tunnel, whisking out of sight into the blackness. "That looks like a tail," he thought. "Or am I just seeing things?" Featherpaw joined him, panting, while Nightcloud hurried up with a bowl in her jaws. Hairspring and Slatepaw ran up shortly after. "What happened?" Nightcloud asked, dropping her prey. "Hoopah, tell me you didn't go into that tunnel, after what I told you." "I didn't," Hoopah protested, "but I saw something in there. An animal that I've never seen before, like a glowing, pure white cat. It looked right up at me, like it wanted to tell me something." "Oh, for Starkland's sake, don't be so mouse-brained," Nightcloud snapped. "There is no such thing as glowing white cats, only Starkland, and they glitter like stars. Honestly, you made such a noise. I thought a badger might be ripping your fur off." "I know what I saw," Hoopah meowed stubbornly. "I've never seen anything like it. It was scary." Hairspring looked thoughtful. "Smokey from the horse place told me once that kitty pets sometimes came back after they died, all shining white, to visit their two legs. He said he'd seen ghosts with his own eyes." "That's the most flea-blind thing I've ever heard," Crowfeather exclaimed, glancing at Hairspring. It was bad enough that Hoopah was scared out of his fur. They didn't need Hairspring encouraging him. Maybe kitty pets believe that, but they don't even commune with Starkland. Hairspring returned his glare for a moment, but he finally looked away as if he was embarrassed. He should be, Crowfeather thought, annoyed. This is who one star chose over me, a warrior who can barely catch a rabbit and now believes in ghosts. Some deputy. "I saw a glowing white cat," Hoopah insisted. His fur was laying flat again, but his eyes were still wide and frightened, and Crowfeather could see that Featherpaw and Slatepaw were beginning to look apprehensive as well, casting nervous glances at the tunnel entrance as if, at any moment, whatever the apprentices had seen is going to come charging out of the shadows. Crowfeather knew it was nonsense, but all the same, something was niggling at the back of his mind. If there were ghost cats, he thought, this would be the right time for them to show up. We lost so many of our clanmates in the great battle. But he quickly dismissed the thought. Clearly, he was letting the apprentices and the mouse-brained deputy get to him. There had to be a perfectly reasonable explanation for whatever Hoopah had seen, but now wasn't the time to find it. "I think we've done enough hunting for one day," he meowed decisively. "Let's carry it back our prey to camp." Hairspring opened his mouth as if to argue, but he quickly snapped it shut and nodded his head. Crowfeather knew the deputy was probably irritated that he was calling the shots, but since he was eager to leave the area, he went along with him. Without any further discussion, the patrol set off, collecting their prey as they went. The deputy loaded up, and the apprentices set on ahead. While he padded along behind was Crowfeather and Nightcloud. Crowfeather couldn't help noticing how subdued the apprentices seemed now, so different from their earlier playfulness. I have no idea what got into Hoopball. Nightcloud still sounded cross. He's usually so sensible. I know, Hairspring responded. That's why I believed him. On Nightcloud's annoyed expression, he continued, Look, I'm not saying they were glowing white cats, but he must have seen something. He did, Crowfeather mewed thoughtfully. I know because I saw something too. Oh, really? You saw something? Nightcloud turned an ridiculous gaze on him. Not a glowing white cat by any chance? No, Featherbrain. Crowfeather swallowed his anger, not wanting to get in an argument with Nightcloud, but something white, like maybe a tail vanishing down the tunnel. There could have been another animal there. But there aren't any white animals on the moor, Hairspring interrupted. Still, perhaps we should report it to One Star. What can he do about it? Nightcloud asked. I'm not sure, Hairspring replied, but we were told to check out the area. And that's what we found. Besides, suppose this is the start of some kind of trouble, and we didn't report it. The clan would be unprepared, and if anything terrible was to happen, it would be our fault. One side needs to know what's going on in his own territory. Crowfeather was surprised to find himself murmuring in agreement. Hairspring might not have been the deputy he would have chosen, but he had to admit that everything he just said was true. He gave Hairspring a sideways glance. Maybe the town wasn't the worst deputy One Star could have appointed after all. Crowfeather picked up his pace until he caught up with the apprentices. Featherpaw was trudging along, carrying the rabbit Nightcloud had caught earlier. As she glanced up at Crowfeather, he could see the worry in her eyes. It'll all be okay, you know, Crowfeather reassured her, and if there is anything in the tunnels, One Star will help us figure out what to do about it. Featherpaw blinked at him. I know, she mumbled around her prey. I just wish we could have saw what Hooppaw saw. I just wish we could have been sure about what Hooppaw saw. We will be soon, Crowfeather responded, and then, whatever it is, Wind Clan will deal with the problem. Featherpaw's tail shot up in the air and her gaze cleared. Yeah, Wind Clan can deal with anything. Crowfeather gave her an approving nod, reflecting on what a bright young cat she was. She would make a great warrior. He imagined how proud he would be if he were her father, but the thought made his gut twist, and he was suddenly feeling guilty, thinking of Breezeville and how he had a better relationship with his apprentice than his son. Returning to the camp, Crowfeather spotted One Star outside his den. He stretched out in the pale sun of Leaf Bear. He sat up alertedly as Hairspring led his patrol across the camp toward him. Did you find anything down there? He asked. Hairspring began to explain about the weird scent that they had picked up near the tunnels, and how Hooppaw, and maybe Crowfeather, had seen something at one of the entrances. It was a ghost, Hooppaw interrupted. A shining white ghost cat. One Star looked baffled. A ghost? He echoed, twitching his whiskers in confusion. Hairspring explained what he had learned from Smokey at the horse place about how he claimed he had seen dead kitty pets returning as shining white ghosts. Crowfeather could see that One Star was listening carefully, but also that he didn't believe a word of it. I can see that you are all very brave, the clan leader told the apprentices when Hairspring had finished, but I don't think there's any such thing as a ghost cat. Only Star Clan. What you saw must have been a trick of the light or your imagination. Hooppaw still looked mischievous, but had enough sense not to argue with his clan leader. It's that weird scent that's bothering me, One Star went on. It seems like there must be something around the tunnels, and I don't like the sound of that. I think we should organize another patrol to take a look inside and check it out. I'll take one now, if you like, Hairspring offered. One Star shook his head. The sun will have gone down before you get there, he responded. It will have to be tomorrow. I expect some kind of animal has made its home in the tunnels, he continued. It wouldn't be the first time this has happened, especially in the cold of Leaf Fair. But if there is something living there, we need to drive it out. Those tunnels are ours. Looking down reassuringly at the apprentices, he added, Hooppaw, you did very well to spot potential danger, but I don't want any of you going spreading wild stories around the camp.